Before we start, please make sure to like this video and hit this subscribe button, so you never miss a story like this. And also comments where you are watching from, how many sons and daughters you have. Thanks.
My name is Madison Clark. And I wasn't even 5 minutes into digging when I heard her screeching from across the street. Put that shovel down right now. You're violating HOA Code 17B. I didn't even get a chance to catch my breath. The sweat hadn't even started dripping down my back before she marched right into my yard like she owned it. Hair stiff with hairspray, clipboard clutched like a weapon. And those fake designer sunglasses she never took off, not even when it rained. She always had a way of showing up exactly when I needed her the least. Karen. I said, straightening my back and planting the shovel into the dirt. This is my yard, on my property. I'm not breaking a single law. You're disturbing the soil. She snapped. It's an eyesore. You need written permission for any exterior ground modification. I don't need your permission to dig a hole in my backyard, I growled, feeling the sting rise in my throat. Unless you've got a deed to this house, back off. That was the moment her lips curled into that smug little smirk I'd grown to despise. Oh, honey, I already called the cops. And just like that, my whole body locked up. Not because I was scared of getting fined or warned, but because what I was digging up was not something I wanted anyone else to see. Not yet. Not like this. 2 cop cars pulled up before I could even blink. Red and blue lights danced across the white siding of my house like a warning. I stood there, hands dirty, heart pounding, trying to stay calm while Karen waved them down like she was directing traffic at a crime scene. This woman is destroying community aesthetics. She's ruining property value. She's unstable, she shouted. One of the officers approached me slowly. His hand hovered near his belt, eyes scanning the shovel like it was a loaded weapon. Ma'am, can you tell me what's going on here? Swallowed hard, my voice cracked, but I held my ground. I'm digging in my own backyard. I didn't know that was a crime now. Karen crossed her arms. She's got a history of I cut her off she doesn't know a damn thing about. Me. And it was true. Karen didn't know the half of it. Steed didn't know what that backyard meant to me. Steed didn't know what I buried there 3 years ago. The night my life turned upside down, all she saw was a woman in sweatpants and work boots, with no husband, no kids, no white picket fence, and she thought that meant I was easy to target. But today she picked the wrong fight. Officer Daniels, I read his name tag as he stepped closer, lowered his tone and gave me a gentler look. Can you explain what you're digging up, Miss Clark? I hesitated. The air grew heavy. Karen leaned in like she was watching a soap opera unfold live on her front porch. I'm digging up something I buried a long time ago, Kay said slowly. Something personal, something that belongs to me, that I have every right to recover. Karen scoffed. She's hiding something. I told you she was suspicious. There's no telling what's in that hole. Drugs, stolen goods maybe even. A body. I nearly laughed. Not because it was funny, but because of how close she was to the truth, and yet how far off. But I couldn't let them stop me. Not now. Not when I was finally ready to face what I buried, not just in the soil, but in my soul. I turned back to the hole, knelt beside it, and pressed both palms into the dirt. My fingers shook as I dug deeper, ignoring the shouting behind me. Every handful of soil I pulled up brought memories rushing back. That cold night. The letter, the box, the promises broken. Madison, stop. Karen barked. They should arrest you. This is vandalism. No, you stop, I shouted, spinning to face her. You've been harassing me for years. You peek over my fence. You find me for weeds that don't exist. You report me for wind chimes being too loud. And for what? Because I don't fit your perfect little mold of what a homeowner should be. Her face flushed red, but she didn't back down. This neighborhood has standards. You are dragging it down. No, Karen, you are dragging it down. With your gossip, your pettiness, your power trips. You act like this street is your kingdom, But you don't care about your neighbors. Do you care about control? The crowd started to form by then, other neighbors peeking from behind curtains, some stepping out onto lawns. They'd heard enough HOA horror stories to know when Karen was on a rampage. But no one dared challenge her before. No one stood up to her, until now. The hole was almost done. I could feel it. The edges of the metal box brushed against my knuckles. My breath caught in my chest. Officer Daniels cleared his throat. Miss Clark, I'm going to ask you one last time. Do we need to get a warrant to stop this or no? I said quietly. Because I'm done hiding. She wants to make a scene. Let her. Let everyone watch. I reached in, dug my fingers under the rusted lid, and pulled out the box. It was heavier than I remembered. Karen's eyes widened. Her jaw dropped. What? What is that? She asked, stepping back. I stood up slowly, holding the box close to my chest. This, I whispered, is the truth. The part of my story none of you know. The part I buried because I wasn't ready to face it until today. If you think Karen's nightmare ends here, you're wrong. 'Cause what's inside that box? It's going to unravel everything. Every lie, every rumor, every judgment she's ever thrown at me. And by the end, she wished she never picked this fight. Stick around. Because this isn't just about a backyard. It's about what happens when the truth refuses to stay. Buried. I took the box inside. The cops didn't stop me. Maybe because they sensed something wasn't right, or maybe they finally realized that. Karen wasn't the one who needed protecting. I closed the door behind me, locked it, and dropped to my knees on the kitchen floor. The metal digging into my palms. My hands were shaking. It had been 3 years since I buried it. 3 years since my world collapsed. I remember the night like it happened 5 minutes ago. It was storming hard. One of those rare California nights where the rain actually feels angry, pounding the roof like it's trying to punish you. I'd just come back from the hospital. My boots were soaked, my hair clinging to my face, and I couldn't stop shaking. Not from the cold, but from what I'd just done. I had signed the papers to disconnect my husband from life support. Just like that, I went from being a wife to a widow. Jason wasn't perfect, but he was mine. We met in high school, fell in love over gas station coffee and weekend yard sales. We built everything from scratch, no silver spoons, no family help, just sweat and grit and dreams. He was the kind of man who never let me open a door myself. The kind who'd leave me dumb love notes in the fridge. The kind who promised we'd grow old together. But fate had other plans. A drunk driver going 87 in a 35 zone. Wrong place. Wrong time. 1 left turn, and my forever was gone. I wasn't ready to let him go. I stayed by his hospital bed for days, begging, praying, bargaining with a God I didn't even believe in at the time. And when the doctors finally told me, there was no brain activity, that he was gone even though his heart still beat, I made the hardest decision of my life. I came home that night to silence. And silence can be so loud when the person who filled it is gone. That's when I found the box. Jason had hidden it in the attic behind old insulation. A metal lockbox, beat up and rusted, with our initials carved into the top. J+M, forever. I thought it was just old love letters or maybe his baseball cards. But when I opened it, I found his real secret. Inside was a stack of savings, bonds, his old dog tags, a key I didn't recognize, and a letter. One I wasn't meant to see until after he was gone. It said, "If you're reading this." I didn't get to say goodbye. I wanted to leave you something real, something you could come lean on if I couldn't be there. Life's unpredictable, Mads, so I've been saving quietly, selling things on the side, cashing in old favors. This isn't just a box. It's freedom for the house, for the future, for you. I couldn't breathe. That's who Jason was. While I worried about coupons and bills and stretching pasta dinners, for a week he was out there planning, making sure I'd never be alone if something happened. That box held over $97,000 in hidden savings. He never told me, never bragged, never said a word. And now he never would. So I buried it. Not because I was hiding it. Not because I didn't want it, but because touching it, spending it, felt like betrayal. That money represented everything he was, our marriage, his sacrifices, the future we'd never get to live. I wasn't ready to face it. I wasn't ready to live in a world without him, so I put the box 6 feet under and told myself, when the time is right, you'll know. And today, when Karen screamed across that lawn like a banshee, that time finally came. Because that box didn't. It's told Cash that it held a contract with his name and signature. A deed to something I had completely forgotten about. Something that would change everything. Jason hadn't just saved for the house. He bought something else. Pause here in the monologue. Slow the pacing for emotional impact. A plot of land. It's 3 hours north. It's tucked in a mountain town I'd never even heard of. It was a note with a map, a cabin drawing. And the words, greater than when the world gets too loud, build peace here. Jason had been planning a second home. A quiet escape. For us, and he never got the chance to show it to me. So now you understand why I snapped today. Karen thought she was catching me breaking HOA rules. What she really did was wake me up. Because while she was chasing citations and fines, I was finally unearthing the last gift my husband ever gave me. Not money. Not land. Closure. Dash. The next morning, I stepped outside with a shovel, still leaning on the porch like a badge of war. I was sore, exhausted, but somehow lighter. I'd barely slept, but my eyes were clear. The box was inside now, placed right where his picture used to hang. And then I heard it. The click of a phone. Camera. The whisper of fake politeness. The buzz of something evil disguised as concern. Karen, double quotes. Didn't see you there, she chirped, standing by the sidewalk like she wasn't trespassing. I was just documenting. For the HOA, of course. She held up her phone, still recording. Digging up property without prior architectural approval. That's violation code 18B. I didn't say a word. She smiled wider, the kind of smile people wear when they think they've already won. When they think you are weak, and they are the law. But don't worry, she said, stepping closer, lowering her voice. I know. You've had a rough time lately, losing your husband. Living alone. House payments stacking up. I get it. Grief makes people desperate. There it was. The threat wrapped in sympathy. I looked her straight in the eyes and said, Is that your opening move, Karen? Blackmail in yoga pants. Her smile cracked. I don't have to be cruel, she snapped. But if you don't cooperate, I will file a full HOA investigation. And those fines can get ... expensive. I tilted my head. And why are you so interested in my backyard? What exactly do you think I buried? She blinked. Doesn't matter. You can't dig without permits. You think it was drugs? I cut in a body. Money laundering. She flinched. You don't scare me? Karen, I said. But you look nervous. That was the moment it shifted. I saw it in her eyes. Something flashed, not anger, not superiority, but fear. She turned around fast and stormed off, muttering into her phone. I knew it wasn't over, not by a long shot. 3 days later, I got the notice. Violation, unauthorized landscaping. Pending HOA disciplinary hearing. Fines accruing daily. They posted it on my door like an eviction letter. Bold red letters. Intimidation tactics. Standard Karen behavior. And just to twist the knife deeper, she called animal control. Claimed I had a dangerous dog on the property. I don't even own a dog. They came to check anyway. Searched my yard like I was running a crime ring. Took pictures. Measured things. And all the while, Karen watched from her porch with a latte in one hand and a smug little dog in the other. But here's what she didn't know. The box Jason left. It held more than just a deed. It had a flash drive. Old, scuffed, but still working. I almost ignored it. But something told me Jason wouldn't leave it unless it mattered. So I plugged it into my laptop, and what I found changed everything. It was a folder labeled HOA Dirty Files. Inside, a treasure trove. Bank statements, voice recordings, HOA meeting notes, screenshots. Proof. That Karen had been embezzling money from the neighborhood fund. Jason had been the treasurer for a year before he died. He never told me the HOA had issues. He was trying to fix it quietly. But Karen, she was bleeding the fund dry. Maintenance expenses that led to personal spa days, security upgrades that didn't exist, and worst of all, a payment to herself, monthly, hidden under a fake landscaping company. She'd created a shell business and paid herself from our dues. I stared at the screen, my heart pounding. Jason didn't just leave me hope, he left me ammunition. The next HOA meeting was scheduled for Saturday. At the clubhouse down the street, usually no one shows up. They let Karen run it like a dictatorship. But this time, I made sure people came. I printed copies. I highlighted proof. I brought neighbors I hadn't spoken to in months. When I stood up in that meeting and dropped the file folder on the table, you could hear a pin drop. Karen tried to laugh it off at first. These are private documents. No, I interrupted. These are public records. Q just hoped no one would look close enough. People gasped. I passed out the proof, receipts, dates, quotes from her own. Emails. She stammered, sweated, tried to deny it. But the numbers didn't lie. Jason knew. I said, my voice trembling but strong. He found out before the accident. He just didn't live long enough to stop you. And that's when she cracked, screamed that I was grieving and unstable, that I was just mad about the backyard. But no one believed her anymore, because a thief doesn't get to play the victim. They voted right then and there. Karen was removed as president of the HOA, effective immediately. An audit was ordered. Legal counsel hired, and me. They offered me the position, said if Jason trusted me enough to leave behind this trail, they would too. I said no. I didn't want power. I just wanted peace. I walked out of that meeting and felt something lift from my chest. For the first time in years, I felt like Jason was standing beside me, smiling. Not because I won, but because I finally let go. I finally opened the box, unearthed the truth, and buried the pain. Not under dirt, but under justice. The day after Karen was removed, I drove out past the city line, into the quiet, into the woods. To the land Jason bought for us years ago, the same land deed I found buried in the box. I hadn't been back since the funeral, not once. It was peaceful, the kind of stillness you can feel in your bones. The road narrowed into gravel, the trees grew thicker, and for a moment, I wasn't sure I'd gone the right way. Then I saw it. Tucked between the pines and wildflowers, a cabin, small, weather-worn, but real. Jason had built it. There was no mistaking his work. It's the way he used rounded cedar posts instead of treated lumber. It's the little brass mailbox beside the front door, the one I'd told him I loved on Pinterest. The red-painted trim, every nail, every board. He built it in secret. My knees buckled as I stepped onto the porch. I reached for the doorknob, and it opened. No lock. Just trust. Just memory. The inside smelled like pine and clay. The walls were unfinished, but sanded smooth. There were hooks for mugs. A shelf of books I hadn't seen in years. Our old photos. Tucked into the corner of the mirror, and hanging from a rusty nail above the fireplace, was a sign carved by hand. For Maddie, when you're ready to start over. My throat closed. I ran my fingers over the letters, the rough edges. He made this for me. All of it. And he never got the chance to show me. There was a journal, too, on the table. Its pages worn. Ink faded. The first entry was dated a year before he died. Greater than I know, she doesn't believe in forever anymore. And I get it. Life keeps hitting her harder than it hits anyone else. But if I can just build her a place, something solid, maybe one day, when she's ready, she'll come here. And remember, she was always meant for more than pain. Cried for hours. The kind of cry that isn't loud, it just empties you. Grief, relief, love, guilt, all crashing together in waves. The next day I packed up my car and I moved in. Not forever. Just for a while, just long enough to breathe. Again, there was no Wi-Fi, no city noise. No Karen across the fence, just me. And the quiet. And the memory of a man who built me a future. Even when he knew he might not be in it. I started fixing it up. I painted the trim white. Bought new pillows. Hung wind chimes from the porch. I'd wake up at dawn and walk barefoot. Through the grass, cook eggs on the old gas stove. Write letters I'd never send. Read books I never finished. And slowly, I felt myself come back. Not the woman I was before. Jason died. Not the angry shell Karen tried to bury, but someone new. Someone softer. Stronger. Someone who'd survived not by forgetting the past, but by honoring it. One morning while planting lavender outside the cabin, I found something. A tin box. Buried shallow under the stairs. Inside. A ring. Not the one he proposed with, but a new one. Rose gold. Twisted band engraved on the inside for the next chapter. And beneath it, one final note. If you're reading this, it means you came. And if you came, it means you're still here, still fighting. I don't know what your life looks like now, but I hope this ring reminds you, you are still worthy of being loved. Not just by me, but by yourself. That's all I ever wanted for you, Maddie. I held that ring to my chest for a long, long time. Then I slipped it on. It didn't fit my left hand anymore, but it slid perfectly onto the right. Because I wasn't mourning anymore. I was remembering. I was rebuilding, and this time for the first time, I wasn't building for us. I was building for me. 3 months later, the house was up for auction. Not because I was running, but because I was ready. Ready to let go. Ready to start again. The cabin was home now. The old place. That was a chapter I'd lived. And closed. But not everyone was ready to move on. Especially not her. Karen showed up at the auction in heels too high for her ankles. Fake tears pooling in the corners of her mascara-heavy eyes. She marched up to me right in front of the bidders, the agents, everyone, and hissed, "You can't do this. This house is part of the HOA. You still have legal obligations. You're not above the law, Maddie." I didn't even flinch. I turned calm as ever and handed her a copy of the deed, stamped, signed, sealed by the county. "Actually, Karen, this house isn't under your HOA. It hasn't been for 2 weeks. I filed for removal, had it reviewed, and it passed. The board approved it, quietly, legally. You must have missed the meeting, or maybe they just didn't want to deal with you for the first time." Karen looked small, shocked, speechless. She stared down at the document like it was written in fire. "But that's impossible." I smiled and stepped a little closer. "Nothing's impossible when you stop being scared of people like you." The auction went ahead without a hitch. The house sold for way more than I expected. A young couple bought it, bright-eyed, pregnant with their first. They loved the garden. Even said they wanted to keep Jason's workshop intact. "Feels like there's good energy here," the husband said. I smiled. And I meant it. The house was finally going to become something new. As the moving trucks rolled in, stood on the front porch one last time, I touched the door frame, the same. One Jason and I painted white our first week here. Ran my fingers along the wall where we marked the height of our future kids, even though we never got that far. Stared at the spot on the floor where he once dropped a whole tray of spaghetti and then proposed. Laughing through the mess, so many memories, so much love, so much loss. But somehow, standing there, didn't feel broken. I felt whole. Karen never apologized. She never would. Last I heard, she was removed from the HOA board. After someone leaked footage of her screaming at an elderly neighbor over a plastic flamingo. Classic Karen, but I didn't need her to be sorry. I just needed her to be gone, and she was. Later that week, I returned to the cabin with a fresh journal and a bottle of wine. I sat on the porch, sunset glowing through the trees, and opened to a blank page. This time, the story was mine to write. No more hiding. No more fear. No more holding my breath. Just life, messy, real. Beautiful. Jason's memory would always be with me. But I wasn't stuck in the past anymore. I was free. So if you're hearing this, if you've ever been pushed down, controlled, or buried by someone else's rules, let me ask you something. What would you build if no one was standing in your way anymore?